So thank you all for coming, and I hope this is useful. I had this blank canvas to work with for this workshop, and so I was feeling into what I wanted to share. With anything to share about the Dharma, it's like a very broad prompt. And I settled on these themes of sincerity and sovereignty. As I was kind of reflecting on what I wanted to share and what might be useful for us, because I realized these are two, well, they're very closely related, but they're two themes that I feel I've become more and more conscious of only in the last couple of years or so of my practice. Even though on some level they've been operating all along, but I think it's helpful to name them and orient to them, or I hope it will be helpful, because for me they're sort of compass headings. And if we're not in touch with like finding the resonance of what's sincere for us in practice, or if we've really abdicated our sovereignty, I think we might be heading in a direction that's not actually where we want to be heading in practice. And we can put forth a lot of effort until we realize that there was something that was more important to us about how we relate to practice. So that's the hope, that we can cultivate our awareness of these themes today. And we'll do a bunch of practice, so that'll be fun. So we're going to start with practice, but first I just want to say like a couple words about each of these. I say words about these words. So sincerity, I'll conspicuously pick up my notes. Yeah. So one of the ways I want to think about sincerity today is being in alignment with the truth of what our desires are. Sort of not disowning our desires, and also being attuned to our deeper desires. So how this shows up in spiritual practice and meditation practice is the main thing I want to look at, but it also is like a facet of practice for me, is can I greet life with sincerity, with sort of earnestness and honesty in my actions, in my words, in my relationships? Can I approach life without pretense? And by sovereignty, I mean a person's not abdicating their own authority or responsibility for how I practice, where I choose to practice, how I think about practice, what I think is true. For now, what I want to do is jump into our first period of practice, and I'm going to guide a kind of meditation that sort of has these things in mind and lets us be in the driver's seat in our own practice and explore what it means to practice earnestly. So probably for around a half hour or so. And then I'll talk, and then we'll all talk more together. So we'll keep exploring these questions over the course of our mini retreat, our little baby retreat. Great, yeah. Is anyone like never sat for a half hour before? Just because it'd be good to be able to help if it's like, if anyone's like, oh my God, a half hour. Okay. Okay, all good. Well, part of this is part of just like trauma sensitivity in meditation practice, as well as sovereignty, is you're never trapped. You can open your eyes, you can stand up, you can walk out the door, although we want you to stay, of course, if you want to. But yeah, so part of I can't tell you how many guided meditations I've listened to, and I like to give a try if someone's suggesting something, but I never feel obligated to. I find my own way with anyone's guidance, so that's encouraged. So yeah, please feel free to find, we have cushions if you want to sit on the floor. We have great chairs. Unlike some traditions, I am not going to enforce absolute stillness. Stillness is very helpful, but you're certainly welcome to move if you need to or change postures if you need to in the middle of the sit, and that's totally fine.
We also have some kind of reclining chairs if someone would prefer those.
Okay. Okay. So settling into a posture that has a good balance of relaxation and alertness. And noticing the contact of the body with the chair or the floor beneath you. Feeling the steadiness of the earth. And noticing if you can take the frame that the earth is holding us. And maybe we can release tension in the body down into the earth, letting go of any tension that's easy to let go of. Welcoming wideness and spaciousness throughout the forehead and the face, like a warm, pleasant sunlight shining on the face. Just moving with attention slowly throughout the body, down through the neck and shoulders, relaxing the upper arms, the lower arms, the hands and wrists. Feeling the length of the spine from the head down through the upper and lower back, all the way down to the tailbone. And on the front of the torso, feeling the wideness and spaciousness of the chest, and the softness and gentleness of the belly. And the solidity of all the energy of the hips pouring down into the earth. And feeling all the space of the legs, the ankles and feet. And so now we've sort of woken up the whole body with awareness. So I'll invite us to let attention expand to the whole space of the body. See what it's like to be with this whole cloud of sensations. And staying for now mostly interested in body sensations, what kind of attention does the body want? Where does the body want attention? Can I watch all the sensations of the body arise and pass? Energies contracting and expanding, moving, unwinding. It's almost like if I was dancing, if I was doing ecstatic dance, I would let the body move however it wants to. And as we're sitting in stillness, can I let the inside of the body move however it wants to? And for us here in person, there's a lot of sound outside. If your minds are like my mind, it's not really ignorable, but maybe it's includable. So noticing the body sensations maybe includes the impact of the sound on the body. There's certainly aversion in my experience. And I'm meeting the whole experience as it is. I'm not trying to make the aversion wrong. So as I meet the body sensations, I'm asking, can I be with what's here with some sort of honesty and sincerity, not denying anything I see? What's the earnest response I can have with the body sensations? And so I'll invite us now to also notice the emotional field of our experience, noticing the heart space, and just noticing, is there joy or excitement? Is there annoyance? Is there frustration? Are the emotions coming in little ripples? Is there a big overarching mood? Noticing the emotional field within the body, within the heart. And once again, what kind of attention wants to meet these feelings, this field? Or maybe, how do I want to meet? How do I really want to meet these emotions, these fields? What's the earnest or sincere? What's even the no bullshit response? What feelings inside me right now want attention? And what kind of attention do I have available to offer them? What's the sincere relationship I can have with whatever emotions are arising? The earnest, the one I really mean. So we have the field of the body, the field of emotions. We might also notice what attitude or beliefs are present in the mind right now. There might be a belief that this or that should be different, or that I should be different, or that you should be different. So staying somewhat grounded in the body so we don't get totally lost in thought, but noticing what views are present in the mind about this moment. What beliefs have we kind of just ingested and believed? Can we notice them as beliefs, as states of mind? And is it possible to relate even to these states of mind, these beliefs or attitudes of mind, from a place of sincerity? What would that mean in this moment? To not just be reactive, but to let ourselves be tenderly touched by what's happening inside our system. To sort of get real with ourselves, in a sense. And for the last section of this practice session, I want to invite us to open up to the whole field of what we've explored so far. The body sensations, the emotional field, the mental field. And I'll suggest we maintain some preference for what's happening here and now. But other than that, let ourselves have a wide playground. If it's up to each of us, if it's up to me, it's up to you, what's the way you want to exist with yourself in this meditation? What's the earnest or sincere way to be with your body, your emotions, your mind? if there's no right or wrong way to meditate in this moment, how does your system want to exist? I love a big, beautiful bell like this. I love when it just emerges out of the silence. But that's not exactly. I'm going to share some thoughts about sincerity, and then we'll do some more practice, and we'll get deeper down into. I forget who it was who said something about accessing my deeper desires. We'll get into a practice that is really good for that after that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So, this question about sincerity is relevant for all of life, but I'm specifically curious about what it means for our Dharma practice or contemplative or spiritual practice, if that's something we're engaging in. And there's a brief story that came to mind for me of a friend of mine named Daniel Thorson. Some of you might know him from the internet or other places. And he tells the story of, for 10 years, being like really gung-ho about going on retreats and going on really intensive practice periods and really kind of gunning for stream entry for the first level of awakening as described in Theravada Buddhism. And he says, in all that time, none of his teachers ever asked him, why do you want this? Why do you want stream entry? It was just sort of assumed. And that's really that's interesting to me because there's something that was unexamined there for a long time. And so, yeah, I want to invite everyone to consider or remember whenever it was that you first got interested in whatever it is that we're doing here, if that's Dharma practice or inner work, or even if you don't know exactly what words you would use to describe what your interest is here, notice what it was that first got you interested in this direction, in putting your energy forth in this way, before you learned any concepts about what it's supposed to lead to or where tradition says it leads. And maybe there was even a first meditation event or a retreat or a first book you read or something that kind of started your interest in this process. And notice if there was an uncomplicated relationship between your desire to engage in whatever that early thing was, and then just following through and doing it. Just, oh, I'm curious about this, or I want to do this, or something in me tells me this is interesting or cool or useful. And how does that feel the same or different to whatever relationship we have now with our practice with a capital P, or with the tradition or the path? Does it has some sense of obligation or should entered in alongside that uncomplicated wish? For me, it was just wanting understanding or a sense of calm. I remember hearing one of my teachers describe his mind in a Dharma talk and just being amazed at how clearly he understood what was going on. And that just fascinated me. I didn't know anything about awakening. I hadn't really read all the, dozens of books I've read now in Dharma talks and things about this person describing awakening this way or that way, or and not everybody gets hooked on awakening as the should in practice. Some people kind of almost have an opposite problem where they don't allow themselves to even sort of consider it. But it is a way that a lot of us get hooked, and so I'm going to talk about it a bit. And I want to tell a story about a retreat I went to a couple years ago, a retreat center called Boundless Refuge. It's taught by my friend Milo Byrne, who I think is teaching here tomorrow. And he's a wonderful teacher and set out to found this retreat center all on his own to teach a 3-month retreat, which is a gigantic endeavor as anyone, as a student or as a teacher. And so a couple years ago, I went to this retreat. I went to 2 months of it. And by this point, I'd already been practicing for a long time, 10 years or so, and I'd already done a 3-month retreat at Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts a couple years ago. And on some level, I entered this retreat with, I kind of learned some good lessons of the Dharma already and had truly in my heart a sense of giving myself over to practice, not having expectation, wanting to just be present and meet life moment by moment all day long in silence for 8 weeks. But retreat also has a way of revealing what's in the shadow in the mind. And as the retreat went on, I started to notice that there was also a part of me that was kind of, I guess, greedy for an outcome, and thought, this is my second long retreat, and maybe I'm kind of hot shit now, and maybe this will be the one where I have a undeniable, huge, shatteringly big awakening moment. And I even started to see part of the mind fantasizing about what I would tweet, what I would tell the internet. about my great experience. Awakening is real and it's worth it. Send. Thankfully I had enough presence of mind to like also at the same time be like, oh my God, Daniel, like. But yeah, I saw part of the mind wanting that. And so was I really wanting awakening? I mean, part of me was oriented in a deep way, but part of me wanted what from this? Admiration, or status, or acceptance. Basically, part of me wanted something to prove I was like worthy or good enough at the end. It was like an unmet attachment need that was being projected onto the idea of awakening. So it was it's probably the most difficult retreat I've ever been to. He's kind of softened it a bit in the recent years, which I'm happy about, but like, it was like a 4:15 wake up until 9:30 or 10 at night, a strict schedule, long sitting periods, an hour to 2 hour sitting periods sometimes. And I really, really went for it. And I really kind of gave it my best to be mindful all day long and to really cultivate samadhi. And like, I really kind of tried to make it happen on some level, even though I also knew there was no making it happen. So I'm going to try to not make it happen, but I also am trying to make it happen. And so spoiler alert, nothing like that happened. I mean, it was a very useful retreat, but like there was no like, boom, God didn't descend on me, or Shaktipat or whatever, or stream entry or Kensho, or there was no like big moment I could point to. Like kind of, the last like 4 or 5 days of the retreat, I was like, okay, I guess it's not. You'll never give up hope, but I could go on a tangent about Ananda did the same thing, the Buddha's attendant. For 3 months, really he was already awake, but he tried to get fully, awakened. And it was just when he gave up at the end of the last night, when his head was hitting the pillow, they say, that something in him stopped trying and allowed him to actually open. But yeah, so I kind of learned that this wasn't something I could force to happen, which on one level I knew, but a deeper part of me didn't know it and still tried to force it to make it happen. And so a deeper part of me learned. Still part of me probably still thinks, right, that I can force it to happen, but the message sunk in some. And so it kind of forced me to ask, if I can't make awakening happen, what am I doing? Like, what do I actually want? What do I actually want from this? What if I oriented my practice not around the question, how do I make this thing happen that I've heard about and read about and thought about and had, whatever little glimpses I've had of? But what if I oriented my practice around, what is it that I want? Can I follow whatever I want? And then, I sort of have a hunch that might be the more organic way, and I'm going to talk about this more, into awakening. But also, if that doesn't lead to awakening, then isn't awakening definitionally not what I wanted, if I was following what I want? And so I noticed that what I wanted was this authentic, sincere relationship with life. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to feel like what's true for me is congruent with what's happening, what I'm doing. And I later came across this great quote from Adyashanti. It's not the pursuit of greater and greater states of happiness and bliss that leads to enlightenment, but the yearning for reality and the rabid dissatisfaction with living anything less than a fully authentic life. So the question is around desire. I want to look at authenticity through the lens of what are the real desires that are here. So desire is what moves us to do anything. Desire is something that arises, and we can have whatever relationship we have with it, but even our relationship is to a given desire that arises is based on another desire. One of my teachers at the Insight Meditation Society, Vance Pryor, said, desire is ethically neutral. There's actually nothing wrong with desire. It's our attachment to the outcome of desire that gets us stuck in trouble. And I think this is really important because there's a common translation of the First Noble Truth that desire is the root of suffering. And I think that's a bad translation of tanha for desire, and a not as bad, but still not perfect translation of suffering as dukkha. Because desires just happen; they're not going to stop happening. And if I'm not, if I desire for the music to stop playing, but I'm not attached to the outcome, I'm not like telling reality it's wrong. I'm not disagreeing with reality. I'm not making that rope burn between what's actually happening and what I'm trying to have happen. Then the desire can just be there and the music can be there, and there's not actually a problem. For those of you online, the music just got louder. So I want to present a way of thinking about desire, that we have surface desires and we have deeper desires. So surface desires, very surface desires might just be like, I want a cookie, I want a nap. And still pretty surfacey might be, I want to be distracted, I want to be entertained, or even I want to be liked. I want something new and exciting and shiny. And then deeper desires tend to be things like, I want connection, I want peace, I want safety, I want love. And I don't have like a one-sentence definition of this, but it seems pretty clear to me that there's some connection between like owning all of our desires and being in touch with all of our desires, the surface ones and the deeper ones, that's connected to authenticity and sincerity. And there's like a few failure modes here. So one is being stuck at the surface desires. This would be like living a very like stereotypically shallow life of like, well, just like always entertaining myself with whatever TV and junk food, or kind of never looking inward at what's beneath the surface of my being. And I think this is what tradition is good at, helping us notice that there's more to life than just our surface desires. There's something deeper here. Then we can also get into pretending that our surface desires don't exist. So like, oh, well, it's a sort of spiritual bypassing. Like, I'm not, I don't need attention, and I don't just want people to like me. I'm on the spiritual path, and so there's a kind of insincerity there. If we tell someone, we're kind of lying about something if we're not also owning that we have these surface desires as well. And then another issue that can arise is trying to write the bottom line of what we think our deeper desires should be or what we want them to be, rather than actually being in the inquiry of discovering what is the deepest desire. So in the context of Dharma practice, we might say, well, my deepest desire is awakening because that sounds good. But what does that actually mean to me? Is that something I actually arrived at through following my desire through the chain of introspection? Or is it something I decided? Is it something that sounds right? So for me, sincerity of desire is owning and honoring all of the layers, while also orienting towards the deepest ones that we can feel, that we can actually feel. So this might be like the music. Maybe some people, does anyone feel like they have like a thing around awakening that like it's become a concept? It's like something that's like, oh, I'm not awakened, and so I have to, yeah. Probably some people don't have this, but it's not uncommon, especially like in the SF Dharma scene, pragmatic Dharma. If you're in that side of the Dharma culture at all, it's not uncommon to view awakening like a video game and like something to achieve. And I think it illustrates this question of like writing the bottom line of our desire. before we actually have touched it ourselves. So awakening, we don't really know what it is unless we've really experienced. We know what it is to the degree that we've experienced it. And some concepts are better than others at describing it. If our concept of awakening is, I'm going to be like invincible and farting rainbows, that concept is a lot further away than some nuanced retelling of Nagarjuna or, some understanding of dependent arising or the nature of dukkha. Those concepts are closer, but they're still not the same thing. They're still not really the understanding. And all concepts are like this. No concept lines up with the actual thing. But it seems like awakening in particular needs to be really realized, and the tradition points to this in all kinds of ways. And so that makes the concept of awakening ripe for our projection of our unowned desires. Once I'm awakened, I'll be really healthy, or once I'm awakened, everyone will like me, or my business will be successful, or whatever. Versus oh, there's some direction here. I don't know what it is, but like what's down there, or what's over there, or what's here. And like as a way of illustrating this, a few pointers from teachers came to mind for me that, when we talk about awakening as the end of suffering, it's like, well, yeah, who can't get on board with that? But at the same time, Adyashanti has a book describing this as the end of your world. So is that what I want? Do I want the end of my world? Am I actually in touch with wanting the end of my world? Shinzen Young, in his book, The Science of Enlightenment, says, when an awakened being opens their eyes, they don't expect to see a world. So this is the level of non-grasping to reality, the level of being so fully in a don't know, no expectation mind, that you could open your eyes and not even have an attachment to seeing, not even expect to see. Another one that points at this for me is, in the tradition, two types of clinging are described as clinging to existence and clinging to non-existence. And for me, it's kind of easy to say, like, oh, I don't need to cling to existence, but then it just throws me into wanting annihilation, which is clinging to non-existence. Or it's easy for me to say, oh, like, I don't want annihilation, but I'm actually just clinging to existing. Can I be so like intensely present that I'm in the middle way between being attached to existing or being attached to non-existing? And to me, these ways of describing awakening give me a glimpse of like how far down this goes and what might be really being pointed at here. And when I've seen glimpses of things on this direction, be it on a meditation retreat or with medicine work, or if it just comes upon me someday when there's a glimpse of this, I see that there's parts of me that don't want it, actually. It's not maybe parts of me are oriented to it. I think they are. That's why I've been practicing, so much, because part of me really has the scent. I think a deep part of all of us really has the scent. Even if we're not practitioners, I think part of us still knows how to resonate with where this is actually leading. But big parts of me, in Zen they say to die the great death. Big parts of me don't want that. Big parts of me don't want the end of my world. And I want to not disown those desires, because if I say, well, those are wrong because I'm a spiritual practitioner and I'm supposed to want awakening, and I'm actually just layering more aversion on top of my desires. I'm actually getting further away from awakening by disowning those parts. So, yeah, the last image I just want to offer about this like nature of desire is, if we think about it like a curved slope, that's like this organic. So like, what is there a way to truly desire the immensity of what's being pointed at or what's being talked about when we use the word awakening? And could it be that we could follow this this slope of desires from the shallower desires through the deeper desires, owning all of them on the way. And being stuck at surface desires is like kind of refusing to accept the plunge to go inward and to see what we might be called to if we really get in touch with what's happening for us more deeply. Disowning the surface desires, pretending we don't have them, is saying like, well, I know the slope goes over there, but it's like the slope goes to my surface desires actually being fulfilled. Like we can't actually get rid of them. So can we tune into however far down in our being is real without deciding what that should be? Can we discover what our deepest and truest desire that we have access to is? And can that be our orientation? Let's take a moment together just to let some of that settle in the body, feeling the earth again. So I want to share a practice with you all called core transformation. And it's very consonant with the way I've been talking about surface desires and deeper desires. That's kind of the whole way it operates. So core transformation is usually thought of as a form of parts work, like you could do IFS or you could do core transformation. But the reason I want to share it today is I want to invite us all to get in touch with some practice that we're engaged in or that we want to be engaged in. So if you have a regular meditation or yoga or dance or any kind of inner work practice, or if you have a desire to have such a practice, we're going to get in touch with that desire and ask that part of us what it wants or what it wants through this. And then we'll invite the part of us to just experience somatically in the body what it would be like to have that. And this is already very powerful. We can actually just use our intention to let ourselves experience what parts of us want to have. And then from there, we'll ask the part again, what do you want through having this that's even more important? And so we'll keep iterating in this way until we reach deeper and deeper states. And so we'll sort of discover what's under the surface here. Why do I want to meditate, or why do I go to dance, or whatever you choose to get to know better. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now, and I'll just guide this as a practice we can all do together. Does anyone have any questions before we begin that might be helpful?
So we're supposed to think of a specific desire?
Yeah. Let me just guide that part. I think it'll be clear. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Message from the chat. No message from the chat. Okay. Hi, everyone online. We haven't forgotten you. Hi, Janelle. Welcome. Good to see you all. Okay. So let's start just by settling into our bodies again. There's so much good information in the body. So just by getting in touch with the chest and the belly and the shoulders and the neck and the arms and the legs, we're giving ourselves so much resource to do something like this. We're tapping into so much wisdom. Just letting that awareness come online, letting the body be relaxed and connected to the earth. And so I'll invite you now to think of and choose some practice that you're either engaged in or want to be engaged in. It could be a meditation practice, could be a plant medicine practice or a prayer practice. And in your imagination, I invite you to go into a moment where you are engaged in this practice. Or if it's something you want to be doing, just imagine engaging in this practice. Maybe seeing what you would see, feeling what you feel, getting an embodied sense of what it's like to engage in this contemplative or spiritual or psychological practice. And you might be able to sense that there's some part of you that wants to be doing this. You're either already in touch with that want, or you can know it's there because you are doing it. So some part of you has a want to be doing it. And you might be able to sense this part in or around the body. It might just be intuitive, if it feels like it's here or there. Sensing the part that wants to do this practice. And we can start off by having a good relationship with this part and just thank it for being there, if that's available. Having the assumption that it wants something good for you through this desire. And so noticing this part in the body and dropping in the question to the part, what do you want? And just relax and notice what response comes up. And this part is allowed to want anything. It can want something spiritual or something shallow. It can want something cool or uncool. Whatever this part really wants, actually. So if it's already clear what the part wants, just staying in that want, feeling what the part wants. For some of us, it might not be clear yet. Sometimes it takes longer. So just remaining open and listening. There's no need to figure it out. If you even have just a hunch, or if it feels like you imagined it, that can be fine. So you might have a clear sense of what the part wants, or it might be just sort of a vague feeling. But whatever's there, now we can invite the part to step into what it would be like to fully have that thing that it wants. So if it wants calm, letting it experience calm. If it wants admiration, letting it experience admiration. As fully and completely as this part wants to, letting it really just have its desire in the body. Continuing to let the part just enjoy the experience of having its desire fulfilled. Even if it's not possible in the real world, or if it has other objections, just inviting it to feel what it would be like if it could wave a magic wand and experience its desire. And then you can ask this part, when you already have this desire, what is it you want through having this that's even deeper or even more important? It might feel like what's possible now that the part already has its first desire. Or having this desire might reveal something even more tender or meaningful or personal that the part wants through having this first desire. And the answer might be obvious, it might be surprising. Just noticing what response comes from the part when we ask it, what is it you want through having this first desire that's even more important? And whatever answer you have, whether it's clear or vague or uncertain, just trusting it's the right answer for this moment. And inviting the part to step into the experience of having this deeper desire fully and completely. Letting the part bask in having this desire as much as it's always wanted, maybe more than it's ever had in life. And as this part is experiencing this deeper desire, let's ask it once more, what is it that you want through having this desire that's even deeper, even more core, maybe even more sincere? And just in your own time, maybe you're still in the question and listening for the part's answer. Or maybe you have some sense of what the part wants that's even more important to it. And when you're ready, letting the part step into this next layer, letting it fully experience, breathe in, live in, feel what it's like to fully have this next desire, this deeper desire. So there may be even more layers, there often are, but even just going a few layers deep, notice the quality of the heart that's in touch with this deeper desire. And notice that to some degree, this part of you right now is experiencing its deeper desire being fulfilled to some degree. And you might ask the part to notice if it has this desire, if it has this state that it's in right now as a starting point. How does that make life look different in general? How does having this deeper state enrich or transform the desires we passed along the way to get here? And how does accessing this deeper state enrich, transform, or interact with the initial desire to be engaged in some practice? And so we'll just take another minute or so to soak in, enjoy whatever pleasant sensation has come from this, or whatever state of being that's become available. Just letting it nourish the body, nourish all of the cells and the bones. So sovereignty, retaining responsibility and authority for our own practice, as Emily has wonderfully demonstrated several times in comments already today. So this is the story of another retreat I was on a year later or so. And one thing I've had been told in the past from teachers when on a silent meditation retreat, fully silent all day long practicing, was do your best to maintain continuity of mindfulness all day long, from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. Try to be mindful all day, to be present. And this was great advice. This really served me well. This really helped my practice deepen and continuity grow and concentration grow and insight. It was good advice. But on this retreat, this was like a year and a half ago maybe, I noticed that there was a tension in my being that had formed around this that was sort of I should be mindful. I should be mindful all the time. and sort of like I shouldn't think, like thinking bad. Yeah. And so I decided to experiment. I was kind of in a phase of noticing shoulds and like what happens if I let go of the should. You can see how this is consonant with how we were talking about sincerity of desire too. So I decided to experiment with, I'm on this retreat, but I'm just going to think whenever I want, and I'm going to be mindful if I want to be mindful. I'm just going to see what happens. And first of all, there was just like less tension in my being because I wasn't trying to control myself in the same way. And I had, my practice had a lot of momentum, so I didn't have to grip the wheel so tight. There was still a lot of mindfulness naturally. But sometimes I would be in thought. I would be lost in thought. And a couple of things kind of happened from this point. One was I might think and like, whoa, be in the kind of relief of like not being pressed up against reality quite as intensely. I'd kind of gone thinking as like a little bit of a mild dissociation from like direct contact with experience. So I'd be thinking, and then after a moment I would kind of, or a minute or however long, I would notice there's some kind of relief here, but it actually also kind of feels worse. It kind of feels like a little more contracted in some way. And I actually want to be mindful. It's not a I should be. It's like it would actually feel better if I could find my way into stabilizing a bit more of my attention in the present moment. And then that move to come back into continuity of mindfulness was coming from my sincere desire rather than from a should on myself. And then the other thing that sometimes happened was like I would think a thought and I'd be like, that's a great thought. I'm glad I thought it. I have no regrets. That was a helpful thought about the nature of practice, or that was a helpful thought about my life. I'm like, that's fine. Okay. And now I'll meditate more, So it was kind of less stress in my system overall. So the received instructions, again, they weren't bad instructions. It was like a good boundary for me. It was a good pointer to practice that. But if I had not allowed myself to experiment, if I'd given over my responsibility, well, my teacher said this thing to me 3 years ago, and I must remain faithful to it, and he knows better than me, and there's no room for me to figure this out on my own, then I wouldn't have learned these lessons that helped me go deeper in my actual practice. So I want to do a little thought experiment and just invite everyone to bring to mind like whoever the most profoundly awakened being you can think of is. Maybe it's like the Dalai Lama or Pema Chodron or some teacher you know and respect. And just notice that they came into life with basically the same equipment you did. A brain and 2 eyes and a nose and so on. They didn't know anything. They had to practice and realize and discover what they know, what they're so gifted at sharing if they're sharing. And so I think we can still be on our knees grateful to people like this who've gone so deep and shared so much. It doesn't have to be disrespectful to explore what is it like on some level to view this person as a peer. They're in the same cohort of was born a human that I am. It's like, that's just another person, and this is what they say. I wonder how they got there. I saw a book a friend of mine has, I haven't read it yet, but it's about Dzogchen practice, Tibetan practice, and the title is Absolute Certainty. Sounds nice. I want whatever they're practicing. Absolute certainty. So let's take the author's word for it. So and so Rinpoche. That so and so Rinpoche wrote a lot of books. Let's take their word for it that this path of practice that they are teaching leads one to have absolute certainty about, I don't know, life, awakening, life, the universe, and everything. How do we arrive at absolute certainty? Can we talk to a being who has absolute certainty, and can that give us absolute certainty? Can just talking to them do that? Or do we have to see for ourselves? Even if someone who has absolute certainty, and they really do, has really skillful words, or they can do some kind of woo-woo energy stuff with their eyes, you know? Yeah. It's like, is that not still being filtered through their finite human brain, you know, and their culture and their language? And is that not interacting with my mind and my brain? In the Pali Canon, the earliest layer of Buddhist teachings, the Dharma is described with the word ehipassiko, which is one of my favorites. I have this dream for I'm doing this now. I have this dream for a t-shirt. You know those grocery bags that say like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you? It's like an old school, I want a t-shirt, but it says ehipassiko in that like font with like repeated all a bunch of times. So stay tuned, follow my Substack, I guess. I'll announce when I make them. So ehipassiko, I've always understood it to mean like come and see for yourself. And I looked up the etymology with my Pali tutor, Claude, and ehi means come, the imperative to come. Passa means see, and iko means, it like turns it into an adjective. So the Dharma is described as being a thing that is of the come and see type. From the beginning, it's the kind of thing you have to come and see for yourself. Okay. So no one can give us absolute certainty. We arrive at this through our own meaning. And yeah, there's some, don't quite have that thought. So anyway. Okay, so given this, like why do we engage with teachers at all? Like why not just strike it on our own? Why do we engage with teachers and traditions? And for me, the answer is it's probably going to be too many degrees of freedom if we're not standing on the giants, on the shoulders of all the giants of tradition before us. So this is what I was saying earlier. Tradition is like a friend saying like, bro, just like trust me on this one. Like you got to try not committing sexual misconduct. You're going to love it. It's incredible. And you're like, I never thought of that. You know, you got to try being kind. Have you noticed that you don't actually want to hate people? Like, it's so tradition is pointing, and teachers are pointing at these deeper desires. They're giving us boundaries. We're voluntarily giving over some of our freedom. We're trying on their boundaries. So my teacher said to me, try being mindful all day long. And I wasn't able to relate to it 100% cleanly as not a should. It was a bit of a should, but it gave me enough structure to start to notice that it feels better to be mindful than not. So we can almost think of tradition and teachers as like a parent with loving boundaries, with good boundaries. So a good parent allows their child to explore, but also keeps them safe. So the paradigmatic example is like if a child is running into a busy street, is the appropriate thing to limit that child's freedom and grab them, so it doesn't even have to be your child, you know, in a certain circumstance. And so, yeah, the precepts around sila, around morality, and practice instructions like, hey, try sitting still for a half hour. You might really like that. It's like, okay, I'll try it. So I'll provisionally give over, like I'll trust to some degree. Well, I trust this enough to try it for a half hour. And then that trust builds and builds and builds, and eventually you trust it enough to try it for 3 months, in one go, maybe. So boundaries limit our possibility space enough. Traditions and teachers, if we trust them, we can allow them to limit our possibility space enough so we have a chance to notice the deeper desires of the heart, to actually notice there is a path here. There is something worth looking at that actually resonates with the sincerity in our heart. But any boundary can also be a prison. Any boundary can be in the wrong place or too tight, not flexible enough. And no boundary setter has perfect information about exactly the perfect boundary to set for their child, or no tradition knows exactly the most efficient means to your liberation. This isn't to say that all traditions are equally in the dark here. You have your suicide cults, and then you have like Vajrayana Buddhism. They're not the same. So some boundaries are better than other boundaries. And the parent or the tradition does their best, and hopefully it's good enough. And generally speaking, the world's wisdom traditions usually, at least the parts of them that are really vibrant and alive, have survived because they tend to be good enough, at least for enough people to keep them alive. And then eventually the child or their practitioner sees for themselves, oh yeah, now I get it, that running into the street was not what I actually wanted. I didn't see that at first. Now there's these really basic morality, recommendations from the Buddha around speech and stealing and, that are quite profound even, but there's even subtler things, eventually, now I see that on some level I do want the end of my world, or I do want to open my eyes and not even expect to see a world. But it helps for someone to point out that was even possible to want, and to point out that if you sit and gather your attention around your breath, there will be bumps along the way, but you will reach a state of a collected mind that's pliable and available and flexible to learn new things about yourself. And this is how you do it, So that's pretty useful. Yeah. So I'll say just a little bit about another element of this that I think is relevant to us, especially as modern day contemplative practitioners, spiritual practitioners, when we have every possible teaching available, which is how do we navigate when there are so many teachings available? And I think one end of the spectrum would be a kind of dogmatism, which is, well, this teacher seems correct, so I'm just going to completely hand over my authority to them, and whatever they say is right, and everyone else must be wrong. And we probably all know people, or even recognize parts of ourselves that that do that or want to do that. It's a sort of, I don't have to be responsible for myself. I don't have to have sovereignty over myself. Someone else can take care of it for me. Another side of the spectrum would be a total relativism, like, well, every utterance is equally true and useful, and who can say, and even if some subset of all the world's major wisdom traditions, are in some sense true or pointing at something real, or they really have the scent of freedom and know how to help people get there, even so, they won't all be equally useful to a given person at a given time. So like, we have discernment to do around what helps me and what doesn't help me, what can help me, what's useful for me, what do I think, what is bringing me into greater clarity, authenticity, freedom. And so my advice is basically just to start where you are with whatever's pinged your curiosity, and give it a little bit of trust. Give it as much trust as you're genuinely able to give it, and try it out and see what happens. That's pretty much it. and then you get to, there's always a fork of, do I give more trust to this? Do I invest more energy, more practice in the way that this tradition or teacher is saying? Or is something else piquing my interest? We can get lost in always chasing the new shiny thing, this tradition, that tradition, this tradition, that tradition. But then we might notice a deeper desire. This has happened to me because I'm very much prone to, like, I have to try everything. But usually when I do that for a while, I notice a deeper desire to stay with something. I want to make the trade-off of not learning about the new shiny, whatever the other thing is, so I can stay with something for longer. That might even be a conscious choice. It usually has to be for me. Otherwise it won't happen. Yeah. So looking for how different teachers or different traditions are revealing or pointing to the sincerity of your own heart. And like for me, the first tradition I really fell in love with was insight meditation, or Theravada Buddhism, early Buddhism. And it pointed with so much clarity that I never had before to what I would call now the sincerity of my being, the authenticity of my heart, or towards freedom, or towards understanding myself. And it remains a major source of faith and inspiration and instruction for me. But after a certain amount of time, when I'd gone, fairly deep with it, you can always go much, much, much deeper. I started to feel like, what are the Mahayanists talking about? And what are the Tibetans talking about? And what are the Christians talking about? And what are these shamanic cultures talking about? And like, this is sort of an advertisement for syncretism. It's like, how is this perspective shedding light on this? I have the scent of something. I don't know what it is. I'll discover that as I go deeper. I have the scent of something. And what these people said, I don't know how to square that with what these people said, but boy, it seems to touch something important in me. It seems to touch somewhere deep and sincere in me. And sometimes I still don't understand how these people are saying something true and these people are saying something true. But other times, like as time goes on, I seem to understand more how they're not so separate as they seemed, or it starts to make sense in my own unique language. It starts to speak the language of my particular being. And I think I'm like a watches YouTube channel religious history person. Like I'm not a religious scholar. But as far as I can tell, there's this great one. I think it's just called Let's Talk Religion. Really good. He's so good. YouTube channel. As far as I can tell, like syncretizing systems of understanding and belief has like what we've been sort of always doing. And there's dangers there, and I won't go into like talking about this at length. I could talk about it more later. There's definitely pitfalls in doing this as well, but I think it's kind of unavoidable. I think we all tend to do it anyway, and those are my thoughts about it. So, okay, so for me, sincerity and sovereignty are both concepts that are pointing at our practice being about our actual lives, about letting our practice be more personal, about spiritual practice not being a hobby or a distraction or an achievement, but something that's much more intimate and real. And what really matters to me? What do I think is true? Who am I giving my sacred trust to, and how much do I trust them? And what do I really want? What do I really want? It's attachment healing time. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay, so partially this is just like a grab bag of my favorite practices, but also they are all deeply related to the theme today of sincerity and sovereignty. It was really through doing attachment work, especially, that I got more attuned to sovereignty and what that feels like in my body. So, has anyone like never heard this term before, attachment healing? Okay, yeah, okay. So I'll introduce it like a little bit. Um, so this is another model of our psychology that posits there's something we can call our attachment system that formed when we were very, very young, babies, early toddlers, that has to do with our relationship to our caregivers and our relationship like to reality, and our like deep fundamental sense of safety, of sovereignty, of like worthiness, of being attuned to, of there being healthy boundaries that will hold us, but of us not being trapped. And there's this has big effects on how we respond under stress in life and our view of ourselves and how we relate to others in relationship. It often really comes out in romantic relationships. So many people think about it in terms of, are we kind of needy and clingy in our relationships, or can we not tolerate anyone being close to us in our relationships? And a lot of this comes from our very early childhood conditioning. So it has to do with our parents, but it also has to do with like the generations and generations of load of contraction and trauma that we've all been carrying for a very long time. And so just to I'll get into the practice soon, but just to hook it into our themes, because it is interesting and relevant, one of the things we'll be doing is imagining, well, we're gonna do two ways. There's one way from a teacher named John Churchill that I really like, where we'll be kind of sensing our safety from the earth itself. And then we'll also do this form called ideal parent figure meditation, where we'll be imagining ideal caregivers who are not our actual parents, different people who, because they're in our imagination, we can imagine them as perfectly safe, perfectly attuned. They know just how to soothe us. They delight in our existence. So we're giving ourselves, it's sort of similar to CT in this way, we're letting ourselves experience some of our deepest desires as humans. So we're kind of sensitizing ourselves to the lower part of to the deeper part of the spectrum in some way of desires. Some things that this system posits that we all desire as human beings: safety, attunement, being seen as good and worthy and lovable. And as this system gets more nourished and resourced, and some of its chronically unmet needs start to be met through this kind of meditation, or there's lots of other kinds of practices. It makes us a lot more capable of standing in our sovereignty, because if we think our worthiness is outside of us, we'll just say, well, I'm not worthy, but this teacher is worthy, so they can make me worthy. Or if we're really caught in pushing people away, there's a way we're still being controlled by them, because it's like, well, I can't be close to that thing. I can't see for myself if it's true, because I can't be too close to it. So practicing attachment healing is useful in a million reasons, but with regards to sovereignty, it gives us like a steady platform by which we can actually explore. We're free to explore ourselves, we're free to explore the world, and this is crucial for spiritual practice and development. Yeah. How'd I do, Kayla? Kayla and I have been in a very intensive attachment program for half a year. Okay. So yeah, let's do some practice. I invite you to find a place to sit or lie down or stand if you wish. That will be comfortable for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. We'll see how long we do. Okay, so like always, just settling in, enjoying the body, noticing if it's possible to let go of some layer of expectation or needing to do this right or needing to get something from it even, but just letting it be an exploration. Letting the whole space of the body come online, starting to receive all of that juicy, yummy information from the head, from the heart, from the shoulders, from the chest and belly, receiving sensation from the hips, from the legs, from the hands and feet, coming into presence with the body. And I invite you to notice the sensation of the earth beneath you, through the feet, through the butt on the cushion. Notice that physical pressure and the steadiness, the constancy of that relationship with the earth. And notice if because of that constancy, that steadiness of pressure with the earth, there can be a sense of trusting the earth, trusting it to hold your body. There's a trustworthy stability beneath us, and it's available to let go moment by moment by moment into being held by this trustworthy stability. And it might be possible to notice that this trustworthy stability is not just below us in the earth, it's also within and around us. For me, it's kind of like saying, just what if the very air around me, the field of consciousness around me, was completely trustworthy? What would that feel like? How would that allow me to let go into the trustworthy stability? getting lovingly curious about this trustworthy stability, feeling in relationship with the earth and the stability that's within and around us, and letting ourselves be held moment by moment by moment. Continuing just to release into the earth, releasing into this safe, trustworthy aspect of consciousness, being held. And I love practicing this way, and we could do the whole sit this way. But I'm just going to transition us or offer a transition to another way of doing attachment healing practice. It's also very good. So I invite each of us to get in touch with a sense of youngness inside. You might even imagine yourself as a toddler or a very young child. And in your imagination, you might stay right here in this room, or you might find yourself in some idyllic environment, maybe a cabin in the woods, or a towel on the beach, some place your inner child would love to be. And our actual parents did the best they knew how to with us, on some level at least. But they were human and they had their parents and their parents. And so in this practice, we're going to imagine having, first we'll start with an ideal mother figure. Someone who's doesn't look like even your actual mother. Maybe someone with a Jane Goodall energy or a Pema Chodron energy. A wise, loving, safe, feminine energy. And if you can, imagining her joining you in this scene. You might be able to see her or just to sense her presence. And noticing that she's entirely safe. She would never harm or invade your space. She would always protect you. This might be like a scene playing out in your mind's eye, and if so, just let it be connected to the body as well. Or it might just be a sense of presence. And notice how she delights in your existence. The mere fact of you being here, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what you do or don't do, she's pleased with you. She delights in your being. You can feel the love coming from her. And you also notice how she's very attuned to your experience. She's perceptive and interested in what's going on for you. She wants to know how you're feeling. And if you want her to be closer, she sees that and comes closer. If you want her to be further, she understands that and she moves further away. You might even notice feeling angry towards her or distrustful. And this is okay with her. She understands. She doesn't need you to not be angry. She doesn't need you to trust her. She allows you to be your sincere, authentic self. It's safe for you to be yourself, to feel what you're truly feeling. And any upset or dysregulation that's in your system in this moment, she knows just how to soothe, just how you want. Always noticing in this practice that you can shape and reshape the feeling and the scene until it's just how you like it. This is your ideal mother. And it might be enough to stay right here as this scene is. Or you might also notice your ideal father entering the scene. Again, this is not your actual father, someone who looks and feels different in some way. Maybe he has the energy of a Mr. Rogers or Thich Nhat Hanh, a wise, grounded, gentle, loving, strong and caring masculine presence, peaceful. And you might sense that he is just as safe, would never harm you. You might feel the love flowing between him and your ideal mother, and the love they both have for you. They completely accept you as you are. They don't need you to be any different. Your worthiness is plain as day to them. They see and affirm your fundamental goodness. You can feel how certain they are of your fundamental goodness. And so taking another 2 or 3 minutes to be nourished in whatever way your system needs. It could be from the trustworthy stability of the earth. It could be from the ideal mother, the ideal father. Knowing that whatever is true in your experience is lovable and can be held. That's like increasingly all I want to do when I practice meditation is secure attachment meditation. Thank you for your practice, everyone. Welcome back for our final leg. So I thought metta practice would be a nice thing to end on here, partially because it's, I hope it will be nourishing to any tender parts of us that got opened up from the last meditation. Partially just because I love it. It's one of my favorite practices. And also because the more of it I've done, the more I come to see it as a practice of sincerity, just like practicing sincerity in the body. So anyone who might not know this word, metta, it's usually translated loving kindness. My go-to one sentence definition is metta is the stance of the heart that has goodwill, just in general, really, but for beings, for ourselves, for all beings, for all experience. So the stance of goodwill, of wishing well, the stance of not having ill will or wishing cruelty, being cruel. So this can feel like friendliness. This can feel like love. It can feel, it can be more subtle than even feeling like an emotion. One thing I share with folks is that I find just the intention to practice metta to be oriented towards goodwill counts, is metta practice. Sometimes we think we have to be feeling a really clear sense of love or kindness in order for it to be good metta practice, and I don't think that's true. I think that just orienting towards metta is really useful and beneficial. And it might also include what's called the other Brahma Viharas. It might also include compassion, so care for suffering. It might include joy for another, just joy, really joy for our own joy or for another's joy. And it might also include equanimity, which is the kind of love that allows things to be as they are. And the way I like to practice heart practice, it's really important to include compassion and equanimity, because that allows me to be a little more real with myself. If I view metta practice as like, I gotta feel love, it can turn into a should. It can turn into trying to make myself be something I'm not. So I prefer to think of it as sort of opening the door for what's true for my heart to be here. So I'm practicing an honest relationship between, my heart and experience. And sometimes that feels like metta. Sometimes that feels like compassion. Sometimes that feels like equanimity. And sometimes the flavor of love, one of those flavors, isn't available, but I can still be practicing a kind of sincerity of just meeting what's here as it is. And to me, that's all in this direction of cultivating the Brahma Viharas, the qualities of heart described in Buddhist tradition. So we're just going to do a short and sweet, like a little 10-minute sit here, and then we'll close out. So once again, inviting you to be comfortable, especially for heart practice, to really be kind to your body. And taking in all of the sensations of the body, inviting the body to be at ease, however much it's available to be at ease. And once again, noticing the emotional field of your experience. Does the heart feel tender Are there flickers of emotion? Is there a larger mood that's present? Even if it's not obvious what's happening in the emotional field, just being oriented to it is enough. And with gentleness, asking, what's the most earnest relationship I can have to this emotional field? How can I meet the emotional experience of my heart with sincerity? There might be here the love, the kind of love that allows my experience to be just how it is. I love my feelings enough to not force them to change. There might be available compassion for any part of this heart that is scared or hurting. There might be the message, I care, I know it hurts, and I'm here. We might have an inkling of the fundamental goodness of this heart. We might notice whatever the heart is experiencing, underlying it is a care for oneself, for others. And I'm going to share a phrase, and It's just like opening the door to see if the heart resonates with this at all, or inviting it to. May I love and accept myself just as I am. May I love and accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I be well. And expanding awareness a little bit to encompass the others in this room and on the Zoom call. All of these beings who have a sincere desire, something beautiful motivating their hearts. May each of us be happy and well. May we be safe and protected. May we live with ease. May each of us be at peace. And closing with just a minute of appreciation for one's own heart, if that's available. There's a lot of richness and beauty to that practice. I, in May, taught a month-long course all about that kind of practice, so there's more there. And thank you so much for joining me in that practice. And today, I'm just very, very grateful to be able to share this. And And I hope it will bear good fruit and help the compass heading of practice be a little more true to what you really want. Yeah. I just want to close by dedicating the merit of our practice, which is a traditional way to close Buddhist-y things. So just feeling into whatever goodness we were able to tap into from our conversation with each other and from the ideas that have been shared and from the practice that we all did, especially from really meeting ourselves however we were able to, and doing that from a place of wishing for benefit to arise. Whatever merit we have accumulated in this way, may it be for the benefit of all beings without exception. May the goodness we've cultivated today as a group in a dedicated way all afternoon, may this bundle of goodness, whatever size it may be, spread out and be of benefit to us, to those we love, and may it be of benefit to all beings without exception. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you.